Hello, it's so lovely to meet both of you. I have enjoyed thoroughly reading your book, and it's wonderful that you're here and I can talk to you about it. But before I start asking you questions, I would like to ask if you'd briefly introduce yourself to people who don't know about you and have lived on another planet, clearly.
Oh, hello, Angelina. Thank you so much for inviting us to speak to you today. My name is Beverley Lee, and solo I write character-driven dark fiction with an emphasis on atmosphere and the build-up of dread. And with my lovely writing partner, Nicole, we write as Nicoverley, and we write queer, character-driven dark vampire romance with an emphasis on high emotion and cinematic settings.
Definitely. And how about you, Beverly? Nicole, I mean.
Oh, hello, Angelina. Thank you so much for having us today. I feel like Beverly just summed up my part of the writing for my solo side, at least. I write queer vampire romance with a gothic edge, of course. That has to be present in everything I write. I don't think I can write something that isn't gothic, but that's sort of it for me. So we're very excited about talking to you today.
Brilliant. So am I. I really am. So I'll dive right straight in with the questions. So here's the first question. And I agree with this. Character-driven stories are at the heart of your work. What is your approach to character development, particularly when dealing with complex, centuries-old beings like vampires? How do you do that?
Ooh, do you want to take this one, Nicole, or shall I take this one?
How about you go with this one?
Okay, right. So with the Conclave of Crimson, it was really easy with the characters because they are all established in our other series. So a Conclave of Crimson is part of the multiverse from Nicole and ourselves, with my Gabriel Davenport series and Nicole's Beguiled by Night series forming the basis of the whole story, and also a tiny little acorn of a novelette called Crimson is the Night, where our characters met each other for the first time. So really with Conclave, the characters were already fully formed, fully developed, apart from Flynn, who is our wild card. And yeah, there's a lot we could say about Flynn, but we probably can't at this present moment.
Well,
I'll have to have you back on then to talk about it.
There's an interesting story about Flynn because he actually appeared in my novel Citizens of Shadow, which was the sequel to Beguiled by Night, because I needed an English vampire, basically. So I asked Beverly, do you have any vampires lying around that I might be able to use? And so that's how Flynn came to be. And it just felt right to have him reappear in Conclave because he is a part of the story. He was sort of instrumental in bringing Clove and the Bloody Little Prophets together with Volcalant and Eric. So yeah, but luckily Beverly just has vampires lying all over the place. That,
I have in cupboards, under tables, they're all over the place.
Just crawling with vampires. Like, what kind do you need?
I love it. I do. Oh. Well, I've read Conclave and I absolutely love it. I've read the Dravenport ones as well, but I haven't read so many of yours yet, Nicole, and I'm looking forward very much to doing so. So, yeah, so okay, that's fantastic because it's so amazing to see how because I can see how some of the characters are like intertwining, with the books, the different books. Is so brilliantly done. Highly recommended, by the way, anybody who haven't read it yet. Right, so second question. Horror romance is a unique blend of fear and passion. how do you balance the tension of horror with the emotional intensity of romance in your stories? And what do you think makes this combination so compelling for readers?
Ooh, right, okay. Am I going with this one?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll jump in if I mean.
Okay, so the thing about Conclave is that it happened so organically that we never really had to balance the tension with the emotional intensity. It sounds really weird, but we wrote this book and we don't actually feel that anybody else has written a book quite like us, because that sounds like we're being very smug, but this
No,
book
I
was written,
agree. I
this
agree.
book was written over 3 months. It was written on Google Docs. It was call and response. We didn't plan a thing. We just got into the document whenever we could and we wrote it, and we never planned any of the scenes out. So everything that happens in the book happens organically.
That is extraordinary, because that is the one thing that I always am amazed at, how people collaborate. I mean, just off topic really, but not quite. Do you kind of each take a bit and you write it, or and then you put it together, or how did the actual mechanics of it work?
You take this one then, Nicole.
Well, this is really, we're still fascinated by this process ourselves, but we did not send bits back and forth. Like every single line of this book was written in real time. Wow. Together. So we were both in there. So that allowed us to give instant responses to events, emotions, anything that came up between the characters. We were able to provide an immediate response to that. And it was also very challenging because you really have to think on your feet with writing that way, because there isn't necessarily time to think or process something before you move on. And we had very little of that, actually, because the story just flowed out. It was just absolutely incredible, and I'm not sure we could ever explain how extraordinary that was. But yes, so the entire book was written live with us in there at the same time. There are a few exceptions. For example, if there's a chapter that was only involving Beverly's characters or only involving mine, we would write those sort of offline in our own time. But other than that, the entire rest of it was written together. And it's also written in omnipresent point of view, which, that would be nearly impossible to do if we were exchanging bits back and forth. Right. So, yes.
It's extraordinary. It almost feels like, as you're talking, the sense I'm getting, and you probably think I'm completely nuts now, is it feels channeled. Did you feel that way? Was it like a download type thing?
It was. There was probably in the whole, I mean, we wrote books 1, 2, and 3 together, and it was 3 months to the day, and I think it was 320,000 words, wasn't it, by the time we'd finished that first draft?
Yes, the equivalent of 1,100 pages.
1,100 pages. And every time we sat down to write, when we'd finished the scenes, we would just like absolutely gobsmacked about it. The fact of what had just occurred. It was as though we would channel in this story. We were just the scribes.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, because when you read it, it feels so organic. It feels like you're in the room. It feels like you're with the characters. And I have never read a book like that before. I mean, yes, that's what you want to do. Every writer wants to do that, don't you? You want to pull your audience right into the characters. But this is the first time I've actually read a book that delivers on that. And I was amazed. It's like, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm so thrilled you guys put it out. Do you know what I mean? This is such a fantastic piece of work.
We weren't going to put it out. That was the thing. I mean, Conclave was a little treat for us after we both finished working on, Nicole was working on the second in the Beguiled by Night series, which is Citizens of Shadow. I was working on a standalone, which actually had nothing to do with vampires, surprisingly enough, called The Sum of Your Flesh. And this writing together with our characters was a little treat for us, wasn't it? It was like, once we finish these first drafts, we'll put them away. We'll spend a little bit of time, you know, just writing, just having fun. Yeah.
Things spiraled quickly out of control in a beautiful sort of way. But yes, and also, you know, the level of romance and intimacy that's in the book is a little, it's much more than either of us are accustomed to writing. And so I think that was sort of a contributing factor as well to us, like, let's just keep this for ourselves. Maybe people won't know how to handle this from us, you know. And the longer it went and the more we wrote, we started to feel like it might be irresponsible of us to not publish it, because you know, there's some opportunities for representation in there that you don't always see. And so that was ultimately what pushed us to go ahead and publish it. So
I'm delighted you did. I am truly delighted you did. But
you.
the other question, and again, it's not one of the ones that's on my piece of paper. I just want to ask you this. You must have got to know each other really, really well writing this.
Yeah, well, we knew each other really well before, didn't we? I think.
Yes,
because we always speak on a weekend at some point. So yeah, we kind of knew each other very well, but it takes an inordinate amount of trust to write the way that we did, because it is the call and response is you have to think on your feet, you have to write. So the other person, they see all the pauses while you're thinking, they see all the spelling mistakes that you have to go back and sort out afterwards. So it is a very, you're handing your trust over to another person. And I feel like Nicole and I have got such a good relationship. The trust that we built just writing this book is just incredible.
Yeah, fantastic. Because also I think, I mean, all art exposes your soul, doesn't it? That's the problem. That's why people are scared to put themselves out there. So to do it intimately with another person. Oh,
yes. I mean, it's a little intimidating to write that way, but again, you know, we as often as possible when we were writing together, we would also be on Skype, and so we have this verbal support of each other in addition to what's being written on the page. So, you know, there would be times where we could encourage each other in ways such as, like, one of us is stuck and the other's like, just write it down, you can fix it later, just keep going, you know. And it was very much a team effort. I really dislike using that word, but you know what I mean. It's the level of support and faith that we had in each other's writing is so deep, and deep to the point where we write each other's characters frequently. And when we reread this and go through edits, sometimes we don't know who wrote what, you know, and that's sort of the ultimate sign, I think, of a really perfect writing partnership.
that's wonderful. Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled you guys met each other and you produced this amazing piece of work. So the next question is this. How do you navigate LGBTQ plus representation in your vampire romance series? What do you hope readers take away from the portrayal of queer relationships in your work?
Well, that's a topic we could talk about for ages probably, but ultimately we both feel very deeply that the vampire as a creature, if you will, is sort of a perfect metaphor for issues that face the LGBTQ community. And you know, there's many aspects of them that put them into this category of being others. And I think that's important. And, you know, frequently they're seen as monsters and they need to be obliterated and put aside from society. They hide, they're veiled, they're in the shadows. And so it's kind of a natural storytelling vehicle to include that with vampires. And then also from a more humorous perspective, we also like to say that if you're immortal, why would you only sample one flavor for the rest of your life? You know, I mean, it just seems natural, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a whole topic that can go on and on, because I agree with everything you said. I've been in the theatre world my whole life and have wonderful friends of all flavors, my darling. Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you the next question, because I want to give us time to talk about things as well. So Gothic literature is known for its rich atmosphere and complex characters. How do you incorporate Gothic influences into your work? And what elements of the Gothic tradition do you find most compelling when crafting your series?
Gosh, well, I think the fact that our characters are vampires and move around in the dark is like the ultimate Gothic trope, if you will. But we also have Vauquelin's palatial Parisian home, which is located bang in the heart of Paris, but it's also isolated from humankind. So then you have the motif of isolation, which is very important in Gothic literature. Vauquelin's home also contains a catacombs where the bones are stacked. So again, that's very Gothic. But yeah, do you want to add something to that, Nicole?
Yes, I mean, for me, and something we discuss a lot when we talk about the Gothic, is that whole sense of a place also being a character. And that's very much the case here, because it's a shelter for them, but it's also foreboding and dark and full of shadows. And so in a way, the house also has some of the same characteristics that we're describing with the vampires. And I think really the ultimate Gothic setting is dusty and forgotten. And the house is frequently described as looking unoccupied from the street, you know, because everything is blacked out. So it really is like a hidden world for them. But the inside is still full of life for vampires, which is a little different from mortals. But yeah, we just there's some crisscross with some dark academia elements in this book as well, in terms of art and music and culture and all of the things that have accumulated with the elder vampires throughout their existences. So yeah, we love the collision of dark academia and Gothic as well. It's just, what else could you write in a book? I mean,
but we've always found that this book is very difficult to pigeonhole into a certain genre, because it does cross so many boundaries of different ways of writing, different categories. So yeah, when people ask us what we write, it's very difficult to say, oh, it belongs in this little pigeonhole, because it doesn't. It has flavors of probably at least half a dozen different genres or subcategories within it.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating and so rich. You know, once you start reading it, you can't put it down. You have to keep going through the night. Thank you. That wasn't bad, was.
Sorry.
Right. Okay. So the next question is this: how has your partnership and I love this, Nicoverley influenced your writing process? Now, we did talk about it a little bit before, but maybe we can expand on it a bit. So what unique strengths do each of you bring to the creation of your stories?
Gosh, right. Right. I think we're both definitely stronger writers for having this partnership. I mean, we do push each other to like cross limits sometimes that we didn't think that we could get to, but we do. Writing by the seat of your pants, because we never plan anything. We just sit down and we write it. That is terrifying. It needs an awful lot of trust. And we do, as I said before, we trust each other implicitly. But yeah, I mean, the difficulties for me with this were the omnipresent point of view, because I'd never written in that before, which is God mode. The fact that I don't normally write in first person, I don't normally write in present tense. But we tried right at the beginning to have my bits in past tense, didn't we? And it just didn't work, so we went back and rewrote them all in present tense. But yeah, I mean, the strengths, I'm the person that does the captions behind all our social media. Nicole is in charge of the graphics, and she's just incredible.
I agree.
I try. Yeah, everything Beverley just said is completely accurate. I mean, we always, or like I said earlier, we're always there to lift each other if one of us falters, because, you know, anyone in any sort of creative pursuit has moments where they doubt themselves and whether they can do that. We always continuously lift each other up, which is magnificent. But, you know, as far as adapting to each other's styles, I mean, most of them were either grammatic or stylistic, you know, and those can be very challenging, but we just luckily established that very early on. And, you know, the entire series is written in present tense, but it kind of felt the pace of the story because of how quickly it unfolded. It was almost like writing it, like I mentioned real time earlier. It's like that present tense just seemed to fit that with this sense of urgency and the way that the story unfolds. But we also established to use UK English. And, you know, as an American, that was challenging for me, but not too much so, because I'm a complete Anglophile. So, you know, but shifting that, and also having to decide sometimes whether Google's autocorrect was right with certain spellings. And again, you know, we sort of ended up with our own little miniature, like, style guide, if you will, of like things that we marked down that we decided to change, that we could return to this list and check for consistency. But I think one other thing that we have done together in our partnership that has made a massive difference in our work together is we created a shared calendar on Google. And so we document everything that we do, even editing points, things we want to talk about with marketing or whatever. So it's a bit of a Bible for us. It just became very unwieldy for us both to keep up with all of this. You know, it's a lot. And so that calendar has saved our lives, and we do rely on it so heavily. It's just amazing.
That sounds like a brilliant idea, I have to say.
Yeah. I don't know what we would do without it at this point.
Panic, that's what we would do. We would panic.
Yes, if it went down or offline, we would probably run around in circles with our hands in the air. Like,
I love it. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one last question, and because I wanted to talk about the book in general as well, but I wanted to ask you this, and we have kind of covered it a little bit, but it's quite a specific question, and I think it might help you with the marketing thing, because I know exactly what you mean, how hard it is to pitch something that transcends different genres. I have one like that myself. It's very hard. So, not vampire, but anyway. So what do you feel your readers expect from you?
Gosh, I think if they've read any of our other works, they would expect something that is very character driven. It's not that we don't have a plot, it's just that for us, character is king, and something that is emotionally tender but has elements of dread or different sorts of horror. And I think you touched on this on one of the previous questions. Like, horror is such a subjective thing, because to different people, horror, some people can be frightened of clowns, spiders, the dark, but in Conclave, horror is more the horror of grief, the horror of making yourself vulnerable, the horror of change, of finding something that you want desperately but you can't have. All these come under that banner.
Yes, I mean, there is some true horror in there as well, or what, again, so subjective. This is a topic that we discuss a lot, actually, because we have maybe some sort of unorthodox or unconventional ideas about what horror is, but it's another reason that this book has been difficult to categorize, because if someone, say, were a devoted romance fan, there might be a little too much violence in this for their tastes, and vice versa. If someone's very much into vampire horror, etc., and then there's too much romance, or too much this, too much that. I mean, we fall back into that genre trap again, because it is so widespread in terms of genres. It's but I think along the lines of what Beverly was saying, people probably expect lush language from both of us, because that's something we both do, and we also are very, very devoted to setting and world building, and the characterization as well. As it's always at the forefront of everything that we write, individually and especially together. So all of those things are still present in Conclave. It's very much, I don't know, in a way, the series is kind of a celebration for each of us, for these characters that we love so much. And we have, in fact, called it a love letter to our characters before. We do love them so much. And it's gothic horror with traditional elements, with modern elements, with I could make a
Well, I personally feel that you kind of, I mean, people are going to probably shoot me for this, but I'm a huge Anne Rice fan. I still am all these years, and I've already told Beverly when I read Davenport, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kind of like her writing. And I think really taken that step forward, and you are the new Anne Rice. I really believe that. I can see it, because she wrote the same kind of thing with all these things. There was romance in it, there was violence, there was sadness and horror, and all the things that you've mentioned. And so I'm excited about this series, and I can't wait to read the next book, because I know that's out, right, already?
Yeah.
It was the launch. I was busy recording another audiobook, so I missed the launch completely. But I cannot thank you guys enough for having the courage, first of all, to write this and to put it out into the world. And you know what? I had a long conversation with Anne herself, and she said the same thing about Lestat, Interview with a Vampire. She didn't want to put it out, and eventually when she did, she couldn't sell it. Exactly the same things. And look,
wow.
Wow, we definitely need to talk to you more about that at some point.
Yes, definitely.
But
I'll have to get you back on again because we're running out of time, unfortunately, today. But I honestly feel that I haven't read the second book, as I said, but Conclave to me was very cinematic. I could see the movie, you know what I mean? I really could see the movie. And I thought, oh, wow, this is exactly the kind of movies that I thought would happen as a result of Anne Rice's work. Now, some of those were translated into amazing movies and some questionable movies, let's say.
yes.
But I can definitely see your work. And I hope that is an avenue you might pursue. I hope that.
Yeah, I mean, we frequently say that Anne is almost our patron saint because again, we both sort of cut our vampire teeth on her beautiful writing and her beautiful characters, and if it hadn't been for her, I'm not sure that we would have developed our own. So
Most definitely, it's no secret that both of us are absolute admirers of Anne, and if that's the mantle that we are given, what a tremendous honor. I mean, she's just, we can't say enough about her, you know.
Well,
yeah,
I can't congratulate you more because I honestly think you've hit the plateau, not hit the plateau, but you've hit the, how can I say, the ground running to take on further the work that she's started and left in the world, and what a legacy that was. And it feels to me like you're taking it on and taking it forward. And I'm so excited and I'm so delighted that you came to talk to me about this today. And so I'm going to have to stop the interview here, unfortunately, because we're running out of time, as I said. But I would love it if at some point you'd like to come back and we can talk about more things, because
we would be honored.
We would love that. Yes.
It would be wonderful. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you. It's just lovely.
You guys are so welcome. I'm so honored. I love your books. I love your writing. I love your characters. And I love you guys. Mwah.
No, thank you so much.
Mutual. Back at you.
Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.